I guess the go live. Okay, it should work now. Cool. Okay, 1 2 3, 1 2 3, mic check. Hopefully, you guys can hear me fine. The resolution should be a bit icky today. Let's just hope that everything is working fine. Give me a few seconds and we'll see. No, is the stream not live? It's supposed to be, right? Yeah. Well, I can see I'm live. I don't know about you guys. So I'll give it a few seconds. Yep, cool. Okay, so we have a remote stream today. Just wanted to let you guys know. Yeah, good evening. Hi, Sunny. I'm not at my usual pace. I'm traveling a lot, and so today's live is gonna be a bit wonky. So, you know, make some compromises on the quality and stuff because, well, that's what we have. Other thing is, hopefully, the audio is fine. I'll be monitoring the chat today a lot. So, do let me know if there's something wrong with the audio and stuff. Cool? Be good? All right. So let's just start today with a few news thingies that we have. So I don't know about you guys, but recently there was Defcon. Now, not the Defcon that you guys have in Gujarat University. No, not that. That's a different thing. Okay, that's not exactly the original Defcon. That's like Defcon, but for India. Okay, no disrespect, just letting you know. It's like a different Defcon. Now, the actual Defcon, like the original one, happened before a few days. So let's just, talk about that. And so, yeah, this is a hacking conference that happens. To participate in it, you cannot use credit card. Like, if you actually want to be here, you have to pay through cash. I'm not kidding. Like, that's an actual thing. So, yeah, this is like kind of a big event. It's kind of a big deal. A lot of big YouTubers, a lot of big people go. I believe it happens in like Vegas, and it happened on like 12th to like 13th August in Vegas. It's a big deal. It's happening in Seattle, it's happening in Paris, and it's also happening in DC. So if you guys are in US, you should go and visit. It's kind of a big deal. So yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a DEF CON conference. Now, there were a lot of things that happened at this DEF CON. One of them was this CTF that they had. So yeah, this was the CTF that they had. Like it was like a series of games. There were like 13 games, and then there was like this meta final game and really awesome stuff. Like we can go and check one of them. It's not gonna make sense. Like the puzzles are next level. All right. So for example, if we just just read this for a bit, we will try to solve one puzzle. But once again, let me tell you, this is beyond my pay grade. Like this is next level stuff. Okay, so today is the day you say, excitedly looking into your closet. You already picked out your best outfit days ago in eager anticipation of this event. You will be joining your friends for a lovely evening of parlor games. You hear a soft knock on the door. Come in, you say impatiently, mildly annoyed at the interruption. Hi, sweetie, it's Granny. I heard you were going to party tonight and I wanted to give you this to help you make sure you are all ready. She hands you an old book. It looks nearly 150 years old with a dusty red cover and yellow dog-eared pages. The Ladies and Gentlemen's Etiquette Book of the Best Society. What do I need this for? Granny smiled warmly. It is important to know how to behave at a party, she tells you. Before long, Granny has gone off on a tangent about anecdotes she was telling about someone in the story from one time when her granny told her something about a party she had been to and something about proper communication with a fan and blah 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 blah. Realize Granny has asked you a question and snap back to the present. You will promise to take a look, won't you? It's not that sort of party, you tell Granny, starting to roll your eyes before you catch yourself. Granny sighs, and you feel bad for disappointing her. She has been so excited to give you this book that clearly meant a lot. But I will look through it. She perks right back up, her face glowing. You will never know when it will come in handy. Okay, so this is the prompt for the first challenge. Like, this is the first challenge. Okay, if you click on this, it actually leads you to a PDF. This is the PDF. We'll give it a few seconds to load. It's kind of like, I believe, 14, 15 MBs, actually more, in fact. So yeah, it's 444 pages, and this is the book that Granny wanted to hand over to us. Okay, it's lagging a bit. I think I should just download it and make sure we can like, yeah, it's 46 megabytes. That's why it's kind of lagging. So once it's downloaded, we're gonna close this page and we'll try to open this ourselves. Okay. No, 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 no. Not my find, not find my, not find my, but Finder. All right. So let's just open up this book and let's just see what's going on. Okay. So first and foremost, when you open up this book, it looks like there are these certain lines. Hopefully you guys can see it properly. Yeah. So there are these certain lines along the pages. If I zoom out a bit, you will be able to notice. And these are like, it feels like someone has folded the book, right? And once again, these lines exist. And now the thing is, to solve this challenge, you cannot just go and read 444 pages. You're supposed to solve all of these challenges in like what, an hour or two, or like maybe one day. Like, I mean, sure, you can try to read all of this, but it just looks like a lot of, garbage. Like, I don't feel you're gonna get any actual information. Like, we can maybe upload it to like ChatGPT or Claude, maybe try to find something, but I don't think it exists. Now, I know the solution to this. In fact, that is how I was introduced to the whole puzzle, by looking at the first puzzle. I saw it on YouTube. The solution to this puzzle is, do you see these lines that we are seeing, right? These are where the pages were supposed to be folded. Now, someone from the Defcon conference, what they did is they printed out 444 pages and they started folding these lines wherever these creases are by themselves. Someone else actually wrote a program, like a JavaScript program or like a Python program, to actually find out where are these creases and then like digitally fold them. Turns out the answer will automatically show up when you fold all the pages. Like, when you fold the page, maybe this edge points to a word or something like that. The point is, it is a very complicated thing, and someone tried to do that. Okay, someone tried to do that, and this was one of the challenges. The point is, there are 13 other challenges. Like, if I take a look at the chess challenge, once again, someone can just go to the website. I'll give you guys this I'll give you guys the link. You can try to solve it yourself if you want. Okay. So once again, this is a chess challenge. It looks like a chess game over here, right? Horseman rides across, breadcrumbs dropped by a child, reduced by one, and a file. Like, once again, this is just crazy. Like, you are supposed to figure out, like, what you are supposed to do with the game. Maybe you can actually check the source, and maybe there's some information in the source. Like, I don't know. It's basically a CTF, right? The point is, I'm not going to try to solve this. No, this is, as I said, way above, what I can possibly do. Also, I think the, yeah, yeah. Hold on. Are they just mirroring? Oh, it's an actual game. So, like, I think you have to beat the chess. Like you're supposed to. Once again, I don't know. I'm not gonna even try. So I guess you are supposed to beat the game. Then there's this one, the third challenge once again. Here in this challenge, you have to actually, do some like riddles and stuff. So we have these animals and they are holding like a specific item. So you take the first word from the item. Once again, a lot of specific stuff, a lot of, URL fun and all of that stuff. And then there's like this final game at the end. And yeah, so these are the types of challenge, right? Yeah, it's crazy. I know, right? There are so many challenges. Like, if you go through the archives, like of last year, you can actually try to solve them yourself. And I mean, that's a crazy thing, right? Like, look at this. These challenges are genuinely so cool. Like genuinely, it's good stuff. Okay. There's like also this bug trail someone created. Someone had like this bug hunt type of thingy. Like, you can just scan and like, continue. I believe that was the pig pen cipher, by the way. This cipher is what we call the pig pen cipher. So yeah. Like even if you are, trying to create some sort of treasure hunt for your like own community or college and stuff, even if you like just, take puzzles and from here and maybe try to change a few things, I think that would be awesome, right? So yeah, this one's also like a puzzle. And once again, we can sit and go through all of them. Yeah, I'll share the link. In fact, yeah, here's the link there. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. I would suggest everyone to go through this. I put it in the chat. I'll also put it on study later on. But yeah. Anyways, we are not here to talk about that. Once again, this is one of the puzzles that was mentioned. Only one person was able to solve this out of thousands of people who went to Defcon. Only one person solved it, and like they're like genius people. I'll try to link that video. This video is from Theo, and I'll try to link the video in the description later on, or maybe I'll share the video after the live is over, like in our Easterly community. But it's crazy the amount of stuff that you have to go through this. This is just crazy. Like you wouldn't even think like the amount of knowledge you would need to understand the different notes, and then you have to find like a cipher in between and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. Okay. So basically that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Okay? In terms of the challenges. Now today I wanted to actually talk to you guys about this specific stuff, which is the AI. And this is kind of a paper someone has written. So we'll try to, oh, we have to pay money. Interesting. Well, we don't have to. I'll just get the article somewhere else. I don't even know why they like charge money for this, given like the whole article is like available free somewhere else. But hey, whatever. No, it did not work, apparently. Okay, whatever. We'll do that article next time then. Okay, let's discuss this. This is what I wanted to talk to you guys about. Okay, so basically it's kind of article slash blog about databases. So I don't know how many of you guys know databases. How many of you guys know MySQL or SQL or any sort of thing? Can you guys like just let me know in the chat if you have ever dealt with MySQL, SQL, Postgres, something like that? Just drop a hi in the chat if you have. If not, I'm gonna try to read this. Okay. Sunny and Atharva, both of you guys. Okay, the other five people who are like watching right now, have you ever dealt with any sort of databases? So, yeah, even if you have used SQL map, that counts. Okay, Yamini says MySQL. Fair enough. Okay, so once again, I feel like this article might not be that interesting to this public, but I'm gonna have some faith and we'll just see. Okay, so we ran out of columns, the best, worst, and the best and worst code base. Okay, so oh, the merchants to table. Yeah, we ran out of columns on merchants, so we made merchants too. We'll talk about what is actually going on. So when I started programming as a kid, I didn't know people were paid to program. Even as I graduated high school, I assumed the world of professional development looked quite different from the code I wrote in my spare time. When I looked my way into my first software job, I quickly learned just how wrong and how right I had been. My first job was a trial by fire. To this day, that code base remains the worst and the best code base I have ever had the pleasure of working in. While the code base will forever remain locked by proprietary walls of that particular company, I hope I can share with you some of its most fun and scary stories. Now, the thing is, when I kind of can relate to this specific thing, like this specific blog post, because when I was a kid, I also like, used to write scripts and like I used to write programs and stuff. Even when I was in college, I would just randomly write a script and I would just randomly create like a page or like a website or something. And I would think, obviously in real life, it would be more sophisticated. But when then I joined different companies, And I noticed that that's what I used to write, the type of code that I used to write as a kid, it's the same type of code that we have in different companies. Like even the current company where I work as basically a technical trainer, you look at the code that they use, and it's basically that imposter syndrome, right? Like I personally feel that, oh, professional people write like professional level code, but that's not how it works. Like the code is just code. And I can give you examples of n number of companies. Many, many, many different companies have this thing where you feel like, oh, they must have like this amazing coding thingy and all. Like you feel that you are so, undervalued, not undervalued, but I believe you underestimate yourself, is what I'm trying to say. And but if you, when you actually start looking at the code base, you would understand, oh, it's very simple actually. And at least that's what I have felt. Now the thing is, we'll go through a few of those stories. The first one is the database lives forever. Okay. So in a large legacy system, the database is more than a place to store a data. Okay. Oh, it is a culture maker. The database sets the constraints for how the system as a whole operates. It is the point where all the code meets. The database is the watering hole. In our case, the watering hole had quite a bit of pollution. Now, this is true. In many companies, the thing is you have a central database and then you have some sort of code that is built on top of it. So obviously, if your company is let's say if it's a B2C company, like your company directly sells some sort of product, so it's actually selling a product, not a service. So if it's selling a product directly to the customers, you would have a database of customers, right? You would have a database of your customers, and then those customers are actually using your product. So it also needs to have a separate database where you are storing all of that information. So code is always revolving around the central database. Like that's how it works, right? You cannot change the database. You have to change the code. That's what's supposed to happen. Okay. Now, the thing is, did you know that SQL Server has a limit on the number of columns you can have in a table? Me neither. At the time, it was 1024. Today, it appears to be 4096. Needless to say, most common, no, sorry, most people don't need to know this. We did. The reason is merchants. Uh, Basically, our table to store customer information. We ran out of columns a long time ago. Merchants 2 was the solution. A table with, if I remember correctly, some 500 columns itself. Now, the reason I say this is like super duper, horrible is because when you actually have a database, okay, so when you actually have a database, let's imagine this is a database and let's just try drawing a few different columns. Okay, let's copy paste. That would be easier. Okay, imagine these are different columns, right? You have your uh, index, like a primary key, then you have the merchant name, age, phone number, address, stuff. At max, if you have ever created like an Excel, I'm assuming all of you would have max to max what? 10 columns, 15 columns, 25 columns, right? Can anyone even think of having more than 1,000 columns? I hope you guys are understanding because like you can have multiple rows. You can have 10,000, 1 million different rows. Sure, that's basically how much data you have. But imagine having 10,000, like thousands of columns. That's a lot, right? Now, basically, this person uh, kind of had the same problem. He had around 1,000 plus rows, and they maxed out at 1,024. Like that was the maximum limit. So they had to create another table which was called merchants 2 just to add more columns. Once again, they didn't run out of rows. No, they ran out of columns like this, like name and stuff. Imagine having that much multi-dimensional data. Like that's a lot of data, right? That's a lot of columns as well. So merchants and its best friend merchants 2 were the lifeblood of the system. Everything made its way back to merchants somehow or the other. But it wasn't as if the merchants was the solo or duo table. There are plenty of properly normalized tables, all with foreign keys to merchants, but one will always hold a special space in my key, sequence key. Now, the thing is, when you have multiple databases, and if you want to connect, like if you want to connect like one database to the other database, and if you want to run SQL queries, you actually have to have some sort of foreign key. Okay, so you have your primary key and then you have your foreign key. Foreign key basically points, it's very difficult to explain, but foreign key is there to make sure that one table can talk to the other table. Kind of. Let's just stick to that. Okay. So now they have the sequence key, like that's a database they have. So let's just go through this once again. It's gonna make sense, I promise. So for ease of understanding, I have recreated the whole of the sequence key table above. Yes, you read that correctly. This is the whole table. A table with a single key and a single value. If simplicity is a virtue, then one might declare sequence key to be the perfect table. What could be more simpler? So there is a table, like there's an actual database table which is called sequence key, and there's just one value inside it. Why? You will understand. But you may be asking yourself, what possible use could you have for a table with one column and a row? Generating IDs. Now, the story I heard at the time was that once upon a time, SQL Server did not support auto incrementing IDs. This was the accepted correct answer. My search to figure out if this was true was inconclusive, but in practice, it served as much more than that. Sequence key was the glue. In every stored procedure that created new entities, you'd first grab a key from sequence key, increment it, and then insert that as your ID for n different tables. You now had an implicit join between all of these entity tables. If you saw an ID in the system, there was a good chance related tables would have a row with the exact same ID. Honestly, kind of clever. Now, let me try to draw the amount of horrible stuff this might seem. Okay. In fact, we'll just try to actually, create like a table. Okay. So imagine, we'll just ask Gemini, you know, create a demo table with more than, let's just say, 25 columns and put dummy data into it around 50 rows and make sure the first column is called primary key. Okay, I'm just gonna ask Gemini to do this because I couldn't be bothered coming up with 25 different columns. Let's just see what it's gonna do. Let's just wait. Foreign key is primary key of another. Yeah. It's, yeah, in simple terms. So you guys have dealt with databases. I'm assuming that's a good thing. So okay, okay. Can we like just insert? Okay, I'm sorry, guys. This Gemini is supposed to be there to create this, right? Like it's supposed to work perfectly with Excel. And look what it has done. Huh? It has created this this horrible thing. This is quite useless. You know what, Gemini, you kind of suck. This is why no one uses Gemini. I'm just gonna create like my own thing. Uh, Gemini sucks. Sure, whatever. And let's just take these and whatever. Okay, so imagine you have a table. Gemini, you suck. Okay. Anyways, imagine you have a table. Okay. Imagine this is a table in like a database. Once again, I know this is technically a worksheet. Data tables are different. Whatever. Just assume this is a table. This is the ID. Okay. Now, when these people, the article that we are reading, when they started using SQL didn't have the feature of automatically adding IDs. Like they didn't have an auto increment. Okay. So they had a different sheet. Like they had a totally different sheet which was just called sequence number, like sequence number, I believe. Yeah, that was the name. And it only had one cell. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to delete everything else. Can we even do that? Does it delete and shift left? You can't delete all the columns. Okay, well, Let's not delete all the columns. Delete columns. Okay. And now let's just do this. Like there was just one, yeah, okay. And this just had a number. So for example, if it would be at 26, okay. So let's say I wanted to create 26. Let's say there's some value. I wanted to write some data into the 26th row. To do that, I would first have to go to sequence number. Okay, so it would say 25 first. I would have to, oh, sorry, it would say 26, my bad. Okay, so I would have to take this 26 from here. I would have to copy this value. Okay, and then I would like increment it yahan pe, like I would just have to like add one to it. So now this would become like 27, and then go here and paste that 26. And then you would have to do it again and again and again and again. Every single time you had to paste in a new row. That is their workflow, guys. I'm not kidding. That is their workflow. That is what they are talking about, right? So they didn't, so this was accepted. And that's basically it. So sequence key was the glue. It's true. It was there in every stored procedure that created new entities. You'd first grab a key from sequence key, increment it, and then insert it as your ID. Imagine having that. Okay. Rohan, what's going on? I'll tell you. Uh, yeah, we are basically talking about an article where there's like this old code base in a company, and like the entire code and the entire company is revolving around a specific database. So that's what we are discussing right now. And I hope you guys are not hearing any sort of noise in the background because there's a lot of noise. Anyways, yeah, let's just go back to this. So now they have something known as the calendar. Once again, that was a sequence key fiasco. Now let's talk about the calendar. A database may live forever, but our login system was limited by the calendar. I don't mean an actual calendar, I mean a database table called calendar. What did it contain? A manually filled out calendar. When asking our resident shaman, who went by the name of Munch, he informed me that when the calendar runs out, we cannot log into the system. This happened a few years ago, so they had an intern fill out 5 more years to make sure it didn't happen anytime soon. What system used this calendar? No one knew. Imagine having a calendar like in your database. Imagine having a calendar like it's the sheet is just called calendar. Let's just write calendar, and then it would just have like months and days and dates and stuff inside it, like just rows filled with dates and like day and all of that stuff. That was a database. It was called calendar. Why? They don't know. But if you don't fill in values in this specific calendar, you cannot log in into the system. I know this feels incredibly stupid, but trust me, this happens in real world. I don't know if anyone here has like experience of like a real world company, but calendar dude. Yeah, okay. What I'm trying to say is, have you guys ever worked in a company where there's like a specific module that you do not touch? Like it has so many bugs, but you just do it the way it is supposed to be done. Like it's been done since years, and if you change even one thing, I don't know if you guys can relate to it, but I'll tell you one of the examples. When I joined a company, not the current one, not the previous one, uh, I am not gonna name the company, but I'm gonna give an example. So when I joined this specific company, we had a sort of database. We had a sort of database, and the database worked in a specific manner. The people who are using the database, they were so used to the bugs that existed in the database that they were actually like, once again, these people are not technical. Like these people would actually open like the web browser, access the database, then do inspect element, and then type something in the console and then get certain values. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And they're like, that's just how the database works. And I was like, no, maybe you can just fix it. And they're like, no, we tried fixing it, but if you do even something small in this, it will mess up the entire system. It will bring the whole database down. And I'm like, no way that is true. Like, let me just, tinker around. And they're like, no, Aman, don't do anything. It's working as it is. Don't change a thing. We know how it works. And I'm like, no, it's bugged out. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So here in this specific blog, they have like this database. And so if they don't have any future like entries, you cannot log in into the system. So they asked a random intern, can you now fill out 5 more years by hand? to make sure that the login system works. Like, this is a horrible dependency. Imagine someone forgets to like fill that out. You cannot just log in after 5 years. Who even remembers this thing? Like, what if the entire company, the workforce was changed or something? It sounds horrible, but this happens so often, you would be surprised. Also, people who are interns, yes, this is the type of random weird jobs that you have to deal with. You know, I don't know. The thing is, Asta isn't here right now on the chat. If she would be here, she would be agreeing with me. But other interns, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is what you guys have to do. Anyways, so every morning, so now there's an employees database. So every morning at 7:15, the employees table was dropped, all the data completely gone. Then a CSV from ADP was uploaded into the table. During this time, you couldn't log into the system. Sometimes this process failed, but this wasn't the end of the process. The data needed to be replicated to headquarters. So an email was sent to a man who every day would push a button to copy the data. Guys, imagine your entire job is that you get an email in the morning and you have to run a specific command to copy the entire data from a backup. Like, for some reason, this people had it structured in such a way that you would have to delete the entire employees table at 7:15 and then re-upload it for some crazy reason. They haven't even mentioned. I'm not going to even go in depth right now. The replacement database. This is fun. You might be okay, my favorite database is coming up next, but yeah, you might be thinking to yourself, couldn't someone clean up this database, make it nicer to work with? Well, the company was way ahead of you. There was a copy of the database. Data in this copy was about 10 minutes out of date. Sync only went one way, but this database was normalized. How normalized? You go from merchants to phone number in 7 joins. Now let me clarify this, like what is going on. uh Once again, this replacement database, so like, obviously that you would think that, hey, listen, this is stupid. We can come up with a better system. Like, why would you need a database which is like this many columns and all of that stuff? So the company created a database. It was only synced one way. That means if I have, let's say, an employees table, it was synced from the original database to the backup or the copy or the new database. But if I made some deletes over here, or if I made some deletes over here, those deletes would not be transferred. It was a one-way sync. That's horrible. Not just that, the data was normalized. Now, when I say normalized, I would give a very, one second, guys, data structure and databases and all of this is quite important if you're going to work in a software development company. You should be knowing these terms, but it's okay if you don't, you can understand. Now, when I say data is normalized, I mean it in the sense that, for example, let's say I'm going to add a few columns. So let's say X, Y, Z, stuff 2 1 2, whatever. Okay, so imagine these are the different columns that we have. Now imagine, because the columns are too many, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this table and I'm going to divide it into multiple chunks. So what I'll do is I'll take all of this stuff. Okay, so let's say, imagine we had some phone numbers over here. Okay, and we'll like just populate the list with like phone numbers. Sure. Okay, so imagine we had these phone numbers. Now what I would do is I would just have my first table as just ID and name. Then I would create a separate sheet, just, okay, not this, back here. I would just create a separate sheet with phone number and ID. So I would just put that in sheet number 2. Okay, so now it has ID and phone number. Then I have a different sheet with, let's say, all the values in this. So let's just, try to put some values over here. Copy and pasta. So what I'll do is, let's just say the Y column and then the ID column now exist in a completely different sheet. So the common factor everywhere is the ID. Okay, I'm kind of exaggerating here, but what is happening is this is what it means to normalize the data in a very rough and crude way. So to make sure that our main sheet, like, it is not too cluttered with like columns and stuff. So I'm taking all the columns. Sometimes obviously you wouldn't do one column at like in one table, you would take multiple columns, like XYZ would be together with ID and stuff. So that's what they did. for the 1,000, 1,500 column database. But the issue is it's too, like, you have to do 7 joins to go from like merchants to like phone number column, like 7 different jumps. That's horrible. Once again, that's horrible. And the one-way sync and all of it, it's just crazy stuff. Yeah. Okay. Finally, my favorite part, the sales number. This is like good stuff, guys. Okay. Every salesperson had a quota they needed to meet every month called a win. The tables that kept this data, not the financial keepings, but a sales specific way of accounting for this, were incredibly complicated. Every day, a job would figure out which rows had been added and updated and sync them with some system at the headquarters. This wasn't really a problem until one salesperson figured out they could ask for those records to be manually changed. Okay. Now, salesperson being salesperson, I don't know if you have ever dealt with a business department of your organization. Let me assure you something, guys, and I might get in trouble for this. The business department in your organization, to be in the business department or to be in the business side of things, you need to lie a lot. Like, you need to lie because you are a marketing person and your job is to lie. Your job is to overestimate your product and your job is to lie. And, like, you have certain quotas. I'm not kidding, you actually have quotas. Most of your salary does not come from your actual salary, but you have something, it's a variable amount, which means how many sales you make affects your salary. So for example, let's say you make 50,000 rupees per month. That's your base salary. Like, that's how much salary, not, I wouldn't say base, but like that's your CTC, that's your constant like amount. Now let's say if you sold something to 100 customers, and per customer you get like somewhere around 5,000. Now that means if you sold something 5,000, 5,000 is a bit too much, 500. And if you sold that product to 100 people, so 500 times 100, you are making 50,000 again. So like 50,000 is your salary, and then on top of that you get incentives. Okay. Yeah, anyways, so now are making one like 1 lakh or something. Now the thing is, let's say, imagine I'm a salesperson and I have to minimum like make my quota. Like, if I make more than 100 sales, I'm only gonna get max to max 50,000. I'm not gonna get more than 50,000. So in my head, I would only make 100 sales. Right? I'm gonna stop putting effort after 105 sales. Does that make sense, guys? Like, if I make 105, I'm not gonna get like what 52,500. I'm not gonna get the extra money. Like 2,500 is just lost. So what this specific person decided to do is that if they already met the quota for this month, they would, like, if they had a big sale, they would put that on the next month. So let's say in January, I'm done with my quota. Whatever I earn from this moment on, I would put it in February. And they kept on doing this instead of, just like, they were pre-filling their quotas. Like, they were doing rollover stuff. Because of this, like, you have to now make changes to the database and the way the system worked. They had to, like, put the, like, they were already putting like the customer information, like the sales information, but the salary stuff they would put it for the next month. Okay. So this salesperson had already got their win and landed another big sale that month. They wanted it to be moved to the next month. An intern was, of course, it's an intern, of course it's always an intern. So an intern was tasked with doing so. Word got out, and over the next 3 years, requests would grow exponentially. At one point, we had 3 interns whose full time job was writing these SQL statements. Writing an application to do this was deemed too difficult. Before I left, I made sure to help those interns build their own. No idea if it ever took off. Imagine you are interning for a big company. You are trying to follow your dreams. You're trying to go further in cybersecurity. Maybe you are learning VAPT, maybe you are learning SOC, and you're an intern, and they give you this stupid task that, okay, now you have to sit and manage the database of these salespeople because they don't have a proper system. That is what these interns are doing. Like, that's their full-time job. Like, they would show up at like 10 in the morning and go back home at like 7 p.m. And all they are doing is just managing the database because it's too difficult to even write a script or a program for it. So, yeah, good luck if you're an intern. Yeah. Finally, the code base. Okay. But what is a database without a code base? And what a magnificent code base it was. When I joined, everything was in Team Foundation server. It's a very old type of server system. If you aren't familiar, this was a Microsoft made centralized source control system. The main code base I worked was half in VB Visual Basic and half in C Sharp. It ran on IIS and it used the system state, excuse me, for everything. What did this mean in practice? Okay, imagine there's a website. Now, if you visit a certain page through like link A and then link B and link C and now the final page, it looks different. But if you visited that final page using, let's say, link B and then C and then A and then final page, it would look different. So that's what they're mentioning. If you navigated to a page via path A or path B, you'd see very two different things on that page. That's not the intended effect. But to describe this code base was merely half VB, like half Visual Basic and half C Sharp, would be to do it a disservice. Every JavaScript framework that existed at a time was checked into this repository. Imagine dealing with every single JavaScript framework, everything from TypeScript to Angular to like, I don't even know. There's so many different options, processing and stuff. Like imagine you have to deal with all of these different languages in the same code base. Typically, with some custom changes the author believed needed to be made, most notably Knockout, Backbone, and Marionette. But of course, there is a smattering of jQuery and jQuery plugins. Like every single software developer in the company is using their own language instead of using the original language to solve their own problems. That just sounds horrible. That's a mess. The thing is, I can appreciate it so much given that I work in a software development company, and you guys, if you are like half, some of you might already be working in a software development company. You know how big of a deal it is to have a code base like this. But this wasn't the code base. This code base didn't stand alone. Next to it were dozen or so SOAP services and a handful of Windows native applications. Most notable was a shipping manager. Fable has it. The entire application was built in a weekend by a solo developer. Let's call him Guilfoyle from Silicon Valley. Guilfoyle was, by all accounts, an incredibly fast programmer. I never met him, but I felt I knew him, not just through his code in the repos, but also through all the code remaining on his hard drives. Imagine, like, so basically, this person is talking about that for every single different customer, like if a customer had some sort of an issue or something, there was like a programmer who had so many different applications from the same company, and he was a solo developer on most of these applications. Like there was no other teammate or someone, like there wasn't a team, like he was making the application. And so if Guilfoyle, this specific person, if that person left the company, you can't do anything. Like that's just a code base, and good luck trying to figuring that, like try to figure that out, right? Okay. Now, Guilfoyle's hard drive. This is Munch. Yes, this was the name he really went by. Kept Guilfoyle's hard drive in a RAID configuration on his desk years after Guilfoyle had left the company. Good luck. Why? Because Guilfoyle was not known for checking in code. Like he would write code, he would not upload it on GitHub. Like it would not be on a central server. So like it's on his personal PC in the workspace. God. Not only that, for but building a random one of Windows application for a single user. So it wasn't uncommon to have a user come to us with a bug report for an application that only existed on Guilfoyle's hard drive. That is a mess. Okay, I'm gonna keep on going, like we're about to end the article. The shipping bug. Most of my job was to track down bugs that teams didn't want to dedicate work to. One particularly nasty bug would pop up every once few months after we ship things. The shipping queue would have stuck orders in them that claimed to both be already shipped and not shipped. I went through a series of workarounds, SQL scripts, Windows applications, etc., to try and get us out of the broken state. I was advised not to try and track down the root cause, but I couldn't help. Imagine like your manager is telling you, "Hey, please don't try to solve this problem. Like people have tried, don't try. Like it will break things." Like that is the level of stuff. Like that is the level of messed up code base they have. Along the way, I learned how Guilfoyle thought. The shipping app pulled down the entire database and then filtered by date, keeping all orders past the go live date of the application. The app relied on a SOAP service not to do servicey things. No, the service was a pure function. It was the client that did all the side effects. In that client, I discovered a massive class hierarchy, 120 classes, each with various methods, inheritance going 10 levels deep. The only problem, all of these methods were empty. I do not exaggerate here, not mostly empty, empty. I'm going to read the whole thing. I'll explain what this means. So that one stumped me for a while. Eventually, I learned this was in the service of building a structure he could then use reflection on. The reflection would let him create a pipe delimited string whose structure was completely database driven but entirely static. That he would send over a socket. Turns out this was all eventually sent to Keyville, the service that talked to shipping carriers. Why did this bug happen? Keyville reused a 9-digit long numbers every month. Someone had disabled the cron job that deleted the old orders. Okay. So I'm gonna try to be very brief in terms of like what actually is happening over here. So this person, this Guilfoyle, instead of giving customers like directly what order, imagine you open up your Amazon account. You see your orders, like you see your pending orders, like shipped, delivered, or dispatched, or in process, on the way, stuff like that, out for delivery, right? Now this person was downloading the entire database on client side. Okay, all of this stuff is supposed to happen on server side, but he was downloading all of it on client side. He was deleting everything after a certain date, like whatever was the set date. He was deleting everything before that, sorry, and he was only keeping what was after a specific date on the client side, mind you. And the entire database, like when this person actually tried to understand the code base, once again, I don't have a really good example right now to like explain this properly, but the code base had 10 levels of inheritance, which imagine you have like a Python script, and then you have another Python script using that module of like I can make this a very simple example. Okay, so imagine you have a Python script. Let's say you have a Python. Oops, that's oh, I just pasted the stuff. Yeah, my bad. Okay, we can just undo. Okay, so imagine I have a Python script and I am, let's say this is my Python module 1. Now in my script 1, I'm using this Python module 1. Okay, so imagine it's like NumPy or like random or whatever, I'm using math, like we are using import math, right? Then in my script number 2, I'm using this script number 1 as a module. Then in my script number 3, I'm using script number 2 as my module. So in my script number 3, I'm writing import script 2 from this, like this, that. In script number 2, I'm writing, oh, from script 1, import this. In the original script, I'm writing, oh, import this from like a Python module. That's what I'm doing for like 10 levels deep. Like that was the code base. And most of the methods and functions inside it were mostly empty. uh, I'm not gonna even try to explain, but like, Jack, this is the gist. Okay, this is the gist. This was the code base. This is horrible. But anyways, the beautiful mess. Also, the reason this broke is because they were using a 9-digit code to like understand the order ID, and so someone on the back end had a cron job. A cron job is basically it's a type of script that runs automatically over a set of time, and so every month, yeah, it says every month. So every month it was supposed to delete old ID numbers, but someone forgot to do that. And so now the digits are overlapping, and because of that, this entire bug was there. That's the mess. Imagine guys having to deal with this. I'm sure this guy would be so frustrated by all this mess. Yeah, yeah, the beautiful mess. Okay, now it's like poetry time. Like this is actual poetry. Guys, everyone pay attention. Okay, we're gonna try to make sure like we are in like a proper zone. Let's just try to read this. There's so many more things to tell from this code base. Like the team of super senior developers who are rewriting the whole thing without shipping any of the code for 5 years. Or the Red Hat consultants building the one database to rule them all. There were so many crazy corners of this code base. So many reasons why there were whole teams dedicated to starting from scratch on just one bit of its functionality. But I think the most important story to tell is about Justin's improvement of the merchant's search page. The merchant search page was the entry point into the entire application. Every customer service rep would get on the phone with a merchant and type either their ID or name to find their information. That would land you on a massive page with all their information. The page was information dense in the best way, full of any information you would need and any links you would want to visit. It was dog slow. Now, basically, imagine like this was like basically just a simple page, okay, with like a simple text box, and in the text box you would just like merchant ID. So like you would fill out this text box, and then you would have like a very small button which would just probably say go. Okay. When you click on that button, it would take you to basically this very big page. I'm gonna try to draw the page, and the page would have all sorts of information. Okay, like merchant this, merchant that, merchant this. This is just information about every single thing in the merchant's database. The thing is, this was loading one by one. So like this would load first. This is the first element. It would load first, then this would load. Like when this was done loading, then this would load. When this was done loading, then this would, and then this and this, and like there was this dependency. Okay, so I'm gonna try to draw an arrow basically like what was actually going on here. So imagine, and once again, there are like thousands of elements. So if one element is taking like what, half a second, or like let's say tenth of a second, like let's say even if you say it's taking like 10 milliseconds, if you have thousands of elements, 10 milliseconds multiplied by 1000 is still 10 seconds to load a page. Okay, now Justin, our dude, Justin was, the senior sole developer in my group. He was bright, snarky, and couldn't care less about the business. He told it like it was. Didn't pull punches and could always solve problems by himself faster than teams around him. Okay, we all have a Justin in our company, someone who doesn't get along with people, but if you just let him work by his own, he would solve problems. Like if you put him in a team, it's not gonna, like if it's taking like 5 days for Justin to do it by himself, if you put him in a team, it's gonna take 10 days. Like he doesn't work well with people, but he's like very smart. And he also, is very upfront. We all would want to be Justin, right? Anyways, one day, Justin got tired of hearing about how slow the merchant search page was, and he went and fixed it. Every box on that screen became its own endpoint. On load, everything above the fold would start fetching. And as one loaded in, more requests would come in. Took page load from minutes to sub-second. This dude, instead of following this hierarchy of like this loads first and this, what he did is he created a separate pipeline for every single. So like it's this specific element, like it's getting loaded from here. Okay, this would also get loaded from here. Then let's say this specific element, it's also getting loaded from somewhere else, and so forth, on and on and on and on and on. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to copy paste basically, because I would rather copy paste than make effort. So every single component in this specific website is now getting loaded independently all at the same time, parallel processing. Like that's a awesome thing. Like that's a good idea. Anyways, that is what Justin did. Okay, so far so good. Chat. Are we like good? I know like we are talking about this specific article since like the last 30 minutes. But this is how you learn about databases. I'm sure some of you would have no idea what like, you know, what was the word? Normalization is. I'm happy if you like understood something. Good. Okay, now is the best part. Like this is the poetry. Why was Justin able to do this? Because this code base had no master plan. There was no overarching design the system had to fit into. No expected formats for APIs, no documented design system, no architectural review board making sure things were coherent. The app was a complete and utter mess. No one would ever fix it. So no one tried to. What did we do instead? We carved out our own little world of sanity. This monolithic app, due to its sheer necessity, had grown to be a microcosm of nice small apps around its edges. Each person, when tasked with improving some part of the app, would inevitably give up untangling the web and find some nice little corner to build new things and then slowly update links to point to the nice new stuff, orphaning the old. This may sound like a mess to you, but it was remarkably enjoyable to work in. Gone were the concerns of code duplication, gone were the concerns of consistency, gone were the concerns of extensibility. Code was written to serve a use, to touch as little of the area around as possible, and to be easily replaceable. Our code was decoupled because coupling it was simply harder. Okay, let's just read this and then we'll just try to summarize. In my career, since I've never had the privilege of working in such a wonderfully ugly code base, every ugly code phase I've encountered since has never transcended its need for consistency. Perhaps it was because the code base had been abandoned by serious developers long before. All that remained were ragtag interns and junior developers. Or perhaps it was because there was no layer between those developers and the users. No translations, no requirements gathering, no cards, just you standing at the desk of the customer service rep asking them how you could make their life better. I miss that direct connection, the fast feedback, the lack of making grand plans, the simple problem and the code connection. Perhaps it's simply a naive nostalgia. But just as I find myself laying on the couch longing to go back to some of the worst years of my childhood, when faced with yet another enterprise design pattern, my mind flashes back to that beautiful, horrible code base. Okay, this is beautiful stuff. Reasoning is that the thing is that the way this whole thing is being explained is like you have this massive ugly code base. So you have this ugly massive code base in the between. Okay, this is your code base, this is your database, like this is horrible stuff. And instead of trying to fix this, people are just finding their little corners and creating their own applications in their own corners, and then eventually they would just update the links, when they are done. Trying to make sure this is how I imagining it in my head. Obviously, software development, maybe you imagine it in like a tree structure or whatever, but like you have a code base and then everyone is writing their own code in like around trying to make sure like you're not interrupting other things. You are trying to make sure like you're not creating any merge conflicts and stuff, all of that stuff. This is how, well, code was. It's horrible. Like you don't have any structure, but because you don't have any structure, you have the freedom to do whatever the heck you want. I'll tell you something once again from my experience. There was a change that I proposed in my current company. It was a very simple change. It was basically about like a password size thingy. I'm not gonna go in depth. Like it was a module, and the thing is to make that change. It was a very simple change. The change was like a few lines of code, and I was like, hey, we could like fix this in like 1 hour. Give me the code base, I'll do it in 1 hour. Because my company is one of the modern companies, we had a procedure. So first, I had to get that approved from a senior developer. Then I had that senior developer would get back to me and would say like, yeah, that's good to go. Then that needs to get approved by a tester, someone who tests the code. They write test cases, then they would do a bit back and forth that, hey, is it working? Is it working? All of that. If there was some issue, maybe a small issue, like maybe the variable name is not, like there's this whole documentation here. You are only supposed to write variable names with like proper casing and stuff. So they would get back to me that, hey, Aman, you should write, everything is correct, logic is correct. Just change the variable name. I would change the variable name. It would go to my, like, whoever is the senior developer. They would approve it. And guys, listen, the approval is not like a 5-second thing. You would send an email, it would take like a whole day, and they're like, oh, yeah, it's good. I get it back. Then it goes to the tester. Tester now will go through the entire unit test again. Okay, it would take like 1 or 2 days, then get back to me, and they're like, hey, Aman, it's good to go. You can go ahead. And I'm like, oh, finally, I can, finally publish the code. That code goes into a release cycle. Like you push the code into a central database, it goes into a release cycle, and it will only be implemented after a specific set amount of time. Like if we implemented the release cycle, let's say last week, I have to wait for 3 other weeks for that change to get implemented. And before that, there's a final person who would go through the whole code, and then they would be like, oh yeah, this is good stuff. There are so many different processes that you have to go through. Okay, now this is not just for code. Every single documentation I write goes through a vigorous, like, entire flowchart. This is what you call document control system. If I actually just search, uh, let's just check a template or example on the internet. So yeah, this is a document control system. Okay. No, wait, not this one, not this one. Approval. Yeah, this. Let's just hope it actually opens up properly. This is a big deal. A document control system is as big deal as the ISO certification in a company. So yeah, look at this flow chart. So I'm gonna try. Can I like even open? I don't think so. Let's just increase the size. Okay. So it starts like you prepare a draft of the document. It also is similar for code. It goes to the process owner. It gets review, then approve. If yes, then it goes like to this specific flowchart. If it's no, then it goes back up. If it's yes, then it goes to the management representative. Then they do a review and approve. Then they sign the check by section. If it's a no, then it goes back. If it's approved, yes. Otherwise, you go back to the start. Then someone approves the document. Then you distribute the approved document, and then you implement. It's a mess, but it's a system. It's a system that you have to follow. Once again, there's another flow chart and another two flow charts for like approvals and stuff. This is how it works in an actual company. And so this person in the blog post is just talking about, even though the code base is like shit, it's beautiful because anyone can just write code and just give it to the customer. It's so, yeah. Once again, I believe if once you guys actually are a developer for like over a year and stuff, and when you read this code, like this specific blog again, I believe you would be able to appreciate it a bit more as well. Okay. Yeah, I'm assuming, yeah, like just like dissertation, you are absolutely correct actually. Just like dissertation, you have to go through a lot of approvals. But the thing is, in a dissertation, you would only have the approval of like a final person, whereas here there are like five different people you need approvals from. So yeah. Anyways, this is the whole once again blog post. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna link this blog post like in the chat for you guys. Like I'll just upload this in like Easterly. Yeah, that is it. I wanted to do math problems today, like live on the like YouTube live, but I don't know. I don't think I have the bandwidth right now to actually manage. It's like already 11, and I have certain deadlines to follow. But yeah, hopefully you guys like today's live. We will call it an end right now. I've already shared the link for Defcon to you guys because I'm in a remote setting right now. I'm not at my own desk. Maybe next live we can actually, figure out like a way to do like maybe one of the puzzles live on camera, like maybe try to do a CTF live. I think it would be quite fun. You guys can see me make a fool of myself, so it would be fun. Yeah. Okay, with that, I'm just gonna call it an end to today's live. Hopefully, you guys had fun. That's it. All the links would be available in Easterly. If you're not already a subscriber of Easterly, find the links down somewhere in the description. Add yourself to our WhatsApp channel, and that's it. That's it from my end. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next live, probably.